The thoughts, opinions, and general overall shades thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck and Rico Lamitte, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us. Oh, yeah. Good morning, everybody. That's right. It is Wednesday. It's hump day. It's May 15th. And today is Bring Flowers to Someone Day. I always love to bring weed flowers instead of other types of flowers, but nonetheless, you know what I mean? It is tulip season. It's also National Juice Slush Day for all you sugar rushers out there. National Nylon Stocking Day. National Chocolate Chip Day, and Peace Officers Memorial Day, you guys. Oh, yes. Thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look up above on your screen to see exactly where we live on the internet. And we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and on our very own website at www.highat9news.com. But kicking it off first today is Rico. Rico's delayed today, huh? We got a delay on Rico, huh? Interesting. All right. Seeing as how that is the case. Dale, do you want to start off with your story, or you want me to start off with mine?
It makes no difference to me.
All right, let's roll. We're going to start off with attorney at law, Mr. Dale Schafer. At one point in time, he did some time for a cannabis crime, and now is the founder of Armada Law Practice, Mr. Dale Schafer.
Good morning, everybody. My story today comes out of Law 360, and I must tell you that the headline is just boring as hell. And I wasn't even going to read this thing, but it involves an ayahuasca church, so I figured I'll, scratch and sniff here a little bit and see what it's about.
Don't forget.
It turns out what I found was the 800-pound gorilla was the DEA. So that's what we're talking about today. I want to at least touch upon what this story is about. A week or so ago, I brought up the settlement between the DEA and an ayahuasca church in Phoenix, where the settlement with the federal government was going to require the DEA to issue an import license for ayahuasca paste and a manufacturing license to be able to turn it into tea. And I thought that was amazing. The DEA did anything without a gun to their head, and it looks like they had a gun to their head then. Okay, so now this week we have a story from another ayahuasca church out of Iowa, I believe. Yeah, Iowa. And they had asked for tax exempt status, and the IRS had said, no, we won't let you have it because, too much of what you do is just, deal with illegal Schedule I drugs.
What story do you want to do to Zen?
But that's not the problem here, okay? What the loser this ayahuasca church tried to do was bring in this settlement they just reached where the DEA gave out these licenses, or has to give out these licenses. The DOJ objected, and you don't need to know what a 28J, supplemental letter brief is to a court or anything like that. But suffice to say, the federal government did want this court to take into consideration the DEA had been ordered to do something, settle an ayahuasca case. Okay, so when you take a look at what happened to this Iowa based church. In 2019, they had filed an application with the DEA to get an exemption from Schedule 1 so that they could freely use ayahuasca in their church, okay? 2019. Okay? And here we are, 2024, and the DEA hasn't even given them a response to their application for an exemption. They're fighting over nonprofit status under 501(c) of the IRS code. And without the exemption, the government claims you don't get tax exempt status. But if you're waiting 5 years with your thumb up your butt for the DEA to do something, then where do you go? Okay. And what this brings up to me is, let's put this in the zip code of getting a Schedule 3 license from the DEA, manufacture cannabis or marijuana to distribute it, a retail license, anything like that. And what you see with the DEA is that when you file an application with them for anything, there's an Administrative Procedures Act that oversees all this. And in the ayahuasca case, 5 years has gone by, and they haven't even gotten the courtesy of a response from the DEA. Okay, and I have been involved or peripherally involved in some cases where people tried to take the federal government, specifically the DEA, into federal court and get something out of the DEA. And it's consistently a losing proposition, because the most you're going to get from the court is an order that the DEA respond to your application or deem it granted, and now you got to go make another application. And you end up in this ever-present administrative law loop where nothing gets done, and there's no sanction against the DEA for not responding to you. And so what I thought about was, if somebody thinks that they're going to get anywhere with the DEA in a Schedule 3 situation, you're smoking too much crack, because this leopard is not going to change its spots. It doesn't like weed, doesn't like any of the Schedule 1 drugs. It's drug its feet. It's paid for and funded negative research. Any positive findings come out, they squash it. You're blackballed. And so it's Schedule 3. If anybody thinks that's going to be a boon for anybody in the cannabis industry, take a look at this case. Because 5 years later, the DEA hasn't even bothered to respond to an application, and I don't see them being any different if you're trying to get a Schedule 3 license to grow weed or to distribute it or to manufacture it or retail sell it. So I'm going to throw this back at you, all of you, for your input and your visions about this, but I don't see a leopard changing its spots, and this is just another example of how the federal government will move their lips a lot, but they don't get shit done. So I'm throwing it back at you. What do y'all think?
You are exactly right, Dale. They are definitely not going to change anything that they have going on. I don't think especially for this. Like, there's no political pressure for them to change anything for this. Like, at least with cannabis, we have a whole bunch of political pressure that we've built up over the years. But for ayahuasca, these guys better start paddling up Schitt's Creek.
Yeah.
I think that. Or sorry, go ahead, Dale.
Oh, go ahead, Luke. Go ahead.
I think that, Dale, you're correct but I think it's almost sense. I don't think the DEA is the leopard here. I think the federal government, or the Goliath of the federal government, is the leopard, and the DEA is only the spot here. So what I think we're seeing is not necessarily the DEA doing anything special here. This is just the norm in the federal government. Like, in bureaucracies, they delay, they like work harder to not work sometimes. It's just the way the mentality of the whole system is. So when I filed motions, Dale, I know I'm preaching to the choir to you on this, but when we filed motions from prison into federal court, many of the motions don't have time limits for the court to respond to. I filed a 2255 that took years to respond to, and the final motion that actually got me out, the 3582, the compassionate release motion, I filed in 2019, and they didn't hear until February of 2023. And that was only because we ended up putting a lot of pressure on them from outside sources. And that was because I had a special circumstance where I had an attorney from Washington, D.C. that could help me. many people in many situations don't have that kind of help, right? So we get into these situations where if you have a system where a bureaucracy does not have a time limit or a threshold or a window of when they're supposed to respond, they're not going to. That's just not in their, it's not in their forte. They don't care. Like, hey, if this sits 4 or 5 years, it doesn't matter to me. I'm still paid the same. That's the mentality in there. So I don't think the DEA is doing anything new here. I think this is just basically a symptom of the greater virus that's going on in the federal government.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, Luke. I'm with you. I think you're right about that too. This is an ongoing thing that these guys aren't going to change. But I do find it interesting how you say it's a spot as opposed to the actual leopard. But I understand that. It does make sense to me. At least from...
Well, the whole problem with the Controlled Substances Act is it's in the administrative law loop. And what Luke alluded to is that in administrative law, you've got to exhaust all your administrative remedies before you can go to a real court. Oh, yeah. Which I call the district court, to get them to recognize you and do something about it. What they've done is, oh, yeah, come in. All right, the DEA was bad. Nothing bad happens to them. We're going to order them to grant your first application. Now you go to the next one and another 5 years. This is what the cases have all been about that I've been involved in the last 20 plus years. And if it goes to Schedule 3, no social equity person's going to get a license, number one. And anybody that applies, you go talk to Sue Sisley. I've talked to her a lot about what the knothole she got drugged through just to be able to get shitty weed to give to veterans, prove that it helped with PTSD. That's what we're going to be facing here. And this is just another illumination of what the bureaucracy of the DEA stands for. And they don't like drugs unless it comes to filling their budget so they can continue to chase it. That's what they're all about.
I heard that. That's what it's all about, chasing that buck for those DEA agents. That's for sure. Getting that paper. Without a doubt.
Rico, the dopest dad on the street, is here.
Rico, so nice of you to join us today.
Morning, Rico.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Talking about chasing bucks, man. I had to chase some. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, chasing. Man, you still running?
Rat
still
race,
doing the running, man.
I heard you're chasing food, brother. That's not food.
Yeah, just because I'm in the place doesn't mean I'm running in place. Come on now, right. Jason.
Hey.
Oh boy.
Hey.
Oh boy, you guys. Oh boy. I mean, this is crazy. These guys, I can't believe that these guys think that they were actually going to get away with this ayahuasca thing in the first place. I don't. To me, I find that interesting too.
How could you say that? There's been so many different cases in the past for cannabis, for mushrooms, or all kinds. I mean, of course, people are going to try. Of course.
And of course, the DEA is going to try and stop it because religion is a very hard thing for them to prove isn't real, right? I think we've had this discussion a few weeks ago, but there's no definition, legal definition or dictionary definition that it has to be some ancient practice. So in theory, I could make up my own religion today and say that my religion is taking drugs.
You could.
People do.
You could.
Yeah, listen, that didn't work out good for Eddie Lepp, and it didn't work out good for a few other people. So the federal...
Yeah, I'm not suggesting anybody should do that, but...
Yeah, fair enough.
I'd go to the Sohum Shah Church.
I bet you would.
You'd be very welcome, Rico.
Yeah. I don't get no green screen.
There you go. Just relax, Rico. Millie is driving over here. It's just don't worry about it, okay?
I tried to throw it over real quickly.
Yeah, just relax, bro. Just, you know what I'm saying? We're
I'm naked right now, Jason.
Oh,
I'm naked.
Oh, I bet.
Told you not to bother me while I'm cleaning my room.
I bet. Oh man. Jeez.
Because I got high.
Yeah. We're gonna go to a commercial. We're gonna be right back.
Good commercial point.
The control tower from Highly Educated has perfected the dab. Utilizing the concept of thin film evaporation, you can waste none of it and taste all of it. The micro texture of the SE pillar increases nucleation at elevated temperatures. And with the tower propelling at 2,600 RPMs, it's certainly the most efficient dab experience to date. The control tower from Highly Educated.
So no idea.
I'm missing Manndie.
So guess I'll just be using. I'll be looking like a Fortnite avatar over here.
Fortnite avatar. That's
Fortnite avatar. I love it.
Mm-hmm. Fortnite avatar. All right. Rico, you want to introduce me or you want to go with your story?
Let's do it, man. You got the man of the hour, always on time.
That's right. When other people are late.
Always on time. Mm-hmm. And known as White Gucci in Detroit. He's known as Gucci Blanco. Gucci Blanco down at Mar-a-Lago. But here on the West Coast, he's known as the highest Republican in every damn room. Coming to the stage, you know who it is. The I-9 News head honcho, Jason Beck.
Oh, yeah. Oh, boy. Here we go. Oh, man, Rico, I have a super, super interesting story for you guys today. I think you guys are going to love this, okay? Are you ready for this, Rico? Okay. Well, ready or not, here it comes.
Lay it on me.
Yes,
Lay it on me, Jason.
Yes.
Okay, Lauren Hill.
You guys are gonna love this. You guys are gonna love this. Employees are cheating on workplace drug tests at record rates, you guys, and legalized cannabis could be to blame. Can you believe that? A rise in the use of adult use marijuana use in states that have legalized cannabis appears to be behind a spike in falsified workplace drug tests. According to figures from Quest Diagnostics, cited by the Wall Street Journal, workers are cheating on drug screens at a rate not seen in over 30 years, you guys. While the number of Americans testing positive for listed substances remains stable for the third year in a row, that is potentially because more are resorting to extreme measures to mask their consumption habits, particularly for jobs like heavy machinery operators or vehicle drivers. Some, in quotes, some American workers are going to great lengths to attempt to subvert the drug testing process, said Susash Harwani, Quest Senior Director of Science and Workforce Health Solutions, who pointed to pot as the leading cause, of course, because cannabis is always your guys' scapegoat. One increasingly popular method is substituting urine samples to use either someone else's synthetic urine that can be purchased online or even animal urine. And Quest data showed a 6-fold increase last year in substituted samples to mark the highest rate ever recorded by the company. Another common example that can, however, invalidate results and can cause a subject to fail a drug screening is not to swap urines, but to blend in additives. But they also say amphetamines rank second after marijuana, you guys. According to Quest, out of more than 8.4 million urine samples tested last year, 4.6% came back positive. States where adult use marijuana use has been legalized, such as New York and Colorado, have seen the largest swing, with 5.8% of the tests positive last year, up from 2.4% in 2015. By comparison, those states that hadn't followed such a less pronounced increase, with the positivity rate only increasing to 3.3% from 2.6% in 2015. As a result, employers are reconsidering what drug test policies may need to be changed to reflect the patchwork of different laws on suitable books, on statute books. And after marijuana, amphetamines ranks as the second most common substance to be discovered during drug screening, with a positivity rate that increased only marginally from 1 to 1.5% last year, from 1.3% in 2019. Well, you guys, who passes their drug tests, you know what? I think quitters are the ones that pass their drug tests because obviously for apparent reasons. But nonetheless, I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this. And who wants to take a drug test? This is Jason.
Why are we still drug testing?
I love this story. I
like this story too, actually.
Yeah,
I really do.
I'm a big fan of this story. I think this story is phenomenal. The fact that they brought methamphetamine into the picture, I find extremely interesting.
You're on mute.
And Luke, you are on mute.
Oh, I was going to say, let me go on the record real quick and just say, I am not for this story, and I'll tell you why after you're done.
I bet you're not. That is pretty.
No, but to your point, Jason, about amphetamines, I think like that's just Adderall. People take Adderall all day, whether they're prescribed to it or not.
I don't know. I think it's a lot of people smoking crank.
I mean,
out here is meth for sure.
Yeah,
in Cali
it's
is
a
meth.
lot of people smoking meth, bro. All across the country. These are all big meth smokers out there.
Knocked in Modesto, Sacramento.
Not that. Mm-hmm. But for a lot of these pre-employment drug screens specifically.
I thought it was called Modesto.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
I mean,
but listen, hold on. Let's go back to like the cheating on the drug test, right? Could legalized cannabis be the blame? How about could prohibition be the blame?
Hold on. What about
that part?
What about the hemp market and the lack of testing of these products and the fact that a lot of these people could be testing positive from using CBD creams that had high rates of THC inside, and people don't know.
Jay. Listen, this is the real A-bomb of this article.
Mm-hmm.
Quest Diagnostics is the one who put this article on, and is the one who's heavily quoted in it, and the one who basically looks like had a paid piece, if you ask me. And Quest Diagnostic gets all of their money from cannabis drug tests. That is their bread and butter. Mm-hmm. So trust and believe they're going to what this is a move to do is to try to have some more stringent testing processes. And
okay.
Also to have probably more supervision during testing and all these other kind of invasive privacy whipping out of craziness that they want to imply, which they want to whip it out. Normally, under a normal circumstance of anybody else, would not be okay. But for some reason, it's okay to invade the privacy of a cannabis consumer. I guess that's all right. They're asked to look at your genitals. Guess what? Welcome to prison. Welcome to federal probation, everybody, because that's what they do. They make you go into a room and somebody looks at your genitals while you drug test. And that's basically what Quest Diagnostics would like to happen here, because they don't want their bread and butter to be taken away or off the table. The bread and butter is what they need to survive Quest Diagnostics. If cannabis drug testing is ripped off of Quest Diagnostics, they have a severe problem there, and so do their shareholders. Mm-hmm. And then let's go to the second part, the amphetamines being the second most prevalent.
And it wasn't even that big of an increase.
Right.
Spread your cheeks and lift your sack.
Yeah.
Man, this shit's crazy. For real. Let's not, I don't even like giving airtime to crap articles like this that are put on like paid pieces by certain companies.
I love stuff like this.
I know you do. I know you do. But I gotta call them when I see a spade. I call it a spade. That's all I'm saying.
Fair enough. That's why I wanted to cover this, because I knew you were going to have some interesting things to say in regards to. And I just want to give they mentioned people. The thing about it is this: is that if you're gonna falsify a drug test, you need to be smart. Okay. First of all, if you're a male, you can only use urine from a clean male, not from a clean female, not from any other animal. You need to use it, and it needs to stay warm. Like 98.6 degrees is your body temperature, so it needs to stay that temperature when you actually
take
pour
notes,
it into
everybody.
the cup. Okay, and third of all, a lot of people are going to the hair follicle test, and from my understanding, this wasn't a thing when I was young, but I have talked to some people in regards to this, and they have said that the way to get around the hair follicle sample is that they bleach their hair prior to the test and then recolor it back to their normal color, and then basically when they bleach their hair, it strips all of the drugs out of their hair that the test would test for. What do you think
man,
about that?
you gotta use one of those things to get all the hair off your body. Tell me you have alopecia.
Well, Luke has another solution to passing a hair follicle drug test, and that's just to shave your head.
You can actually, the hair follicle test is an option. It's always an option. They're never going to force you to
no, that's
only...
not true. That's not true. That's not true.
Yes.
The WIN only does hair follicle tests when they hire employees.
Okay, well, I'm not talking about like a private business can do whatever they want to, but I'm saying like generally speaking, like a entity that like it does drug testing, Quest Diagnostics, a probation, a court or any of those situations. They will go to hair follicle testing, but they give you other options too. Mm-hmm. They'll go to hair follicle when you, like, for instance, Kodak Black had a situation where they thought perhaps his tests may have been mixed up by the administrator, and the judge gave him the option of wanting to test, which Kodak Black declined. So, you know, they will give you different options at different times, sometimes if those situations occur. Now, when you're getting like hired by a private entity into their employment, you know, I'm sure they can come up with their own restrictions on whatever they want.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we're going to keep this train rolling. We're going to roll right into the dope dad himself, Mr. Rico Lamitte, who is a little bit late today. But
right on time, baby.
Nonetheless, he still made it. And he's still got a story for you today. That's right. It's the dope dad himself, Mr. Rico Lamitte.
Jesus had me here right on time, baby.
You still wiping the sleepy seeds out of your eyes, I see.
It's sleepy seeds, man. I had some coffee. This morning. It's the first time I had coffee in almost a year. And good God, man. The shot of coffee.
So is that what it was? It took you so long to make that cup of coffee because you hadn't had coffee in so long, and that's why you're late today?
Nah, man. I came in right when God told me to be here, man. Nothing happens on the universe makes no mistakes.
All right.
That's right, brother.
All right.
All right. So my story today is coming out of MJ Biz Daily, and apparently the DEA is talking some shit. Because while Fox News, Kevin Sabet, and every damn near right-wing prohibitionist with a megaphone continuing to argue that quote-unquote high-potency marijuana is the root of all modern American evil, and that federal legalization will just speed up evil drug dealers' access to pushing that 40+% THC hardcore shit into our nation's sweet, innocent youth and the elderly. The DEA, on the other hand, says the average THC potency of illicit marijuana flower in the United States is just 16%. Say what? According to MJ Biz Daily, the revelation came from the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration's National Drug Threat Assessment Report released last week. And that number is well below the THC levels seen in commercial cannabis stores, where accusations of THC potency inflation have been circulating for years. So who's the biggest liar here? Citing data from the University of Mississippi's Marijuana Monitoring Program, which tests seized illicit cannabis submitted for analysis by the DEA, as well as state and local law enforcement agencies, the report noted a decades-long sharp and steady increase in cannabis potency that's accelerated in the recent years. That 16% potency is an increase of 29% from 2021, according to the DEA. Potency of THC in leafy marijuana is at an all-time high, increasing the potential risk of negative effects on users in any form of the drug and on children who may consume edibles made with these substances, according to the agency. Sources of seized marijuana include illegal grows operated by transnational criminal organizations, including Mexican drug cartels, as well as Asian drug trafficking organizations that the DEA says hide behind state marijuana laws. The report claims the agency's assessment was drawn from high-profile examples like the case of nearly 28 tons of cannabis shipped from an Oklahoma grow facility licensed by the Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Authority, but also concedes that it has no clear answer as to why illicit cannabis would be significantly weaker than that sold in regulated stores that bemoan unlicensed competition. Could lab shopping be the true villain in this story? The article says one theory is that the THC percentages of lab-tested commercial product has been grossly inflated as a result of market pressures. The aggregate cost-conscious consumers gravitate towards cannabis flower with the most THC, even though, as many experts stress, that's not a reliable indicator of quality. As a result, producers are keen to find the lab that will return favorable results. On the other end, labs wishing to retain business are pressured into returning those numbers that their clients demand. It's because they don't want to lose that money. One study of Colorado commercial cannabis found flower THC potency inflated by 23 to 35%. In California, average THC potency decreased 7% in the first 3 months of 2024 after a change in state law governing how labs test for THC, according to SFGate. My man Lester Black over there. I'd argue that the truth is somewhere in the middle of both arguments, but I want to hear what the rest of the team thinks on this one. They say a broken clock is right at least twice every single day. Does the DEA finally know what time that it is? And will they be on time, unlike me this morning? I don't know. I'm Rico Lamitte, the dopest dad on the street for High at 9 News. What do y'all think?
Man.
Never
DEA.
gonna hear me say this, but I think the DEA is actually the one telling the truth here.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Sohum, on that. I think
so too.
I think they're telling the truth, and I would like to hear them. I wish they would have got some quotes from some actual testing labs and see what some of these testing labs had to say in regards to this, because we all know they inflate these numbers like crazy.
Call them out.
Jason, you think the testing labs are gonna be like, yeah, we do that?
I mean,
No.
Hey, this is High at 9 News. We're here to ask you about your inflated THC numbers. Is this true?
Yeah.
Well, actually, sir, yes, it is.
I think that would be fantastic to do. I'm all the way down with that.
I think I've met people at labs in multiple different states, Colorado, Oklahoma, California, and I mean, they might not tell MJ Biz this, but they'll all tell you behind closed doors that they have no choice but to play the same game that everyone is playing. So I don't think any of them would actually deny it again. I don't know, but they would. I think provide an on record quote.
I think the DEA needs to hire needs to get Troy Brady for an endorsement on this, because he is the king of Deflategate.
You mean Tom Brady?
Yeah, Tom Brady. Yeah.
I was like, who is Troy Brady?
Sorry, Tom Brady. My bad,
this
guys.
man got the GOAT's name messed up. That's like calling him Miguel Jordan or something.
Whatever,
but that would even be closer.
Get over yourself. Get over yourself.
Ordan. Miguel Ordan.
Anyhow, this is not surprising. The DEA catches all kinds of bammer ass outdoor, hundreds of pounds of it, and then that's going to skew the numbers to sometimes when they catch some packs of indoor.
Hold on, so you're blaming this on all of the outdoor booth producers? The fact that it's only 16%?
For sure. This is a product of guerrilla grows and like just some BS that the DEA can go scoop up. Listen, the DEA is a numbers-driven system, right? So they need these huge eradications, and they know they can just roll up into the national park and hit 40,000 plants on a whim. So it's like, those are easy moves for them. They look like they've done a lot of work right there, but that's crap. The cannabis there is crap. And I will say that Rico's right. The whole lab system and what's going on with THC percentages it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You know what I mean? Like, we taught, and I say we by the early pioneers of Jason and everybody that was running dispensaries back in the day, we taught people, hey, buy weed like this, buy indica, buy sativa, it'll make you feel like this, it'll do this. Those were all wrong. So like, we're having to fight the battle of teaching people how to buy cannabis again with the right indicator.
Well, I'm going to say this. I don't think that was wrong back then. I think that was the best that we had back then, and that was all that we had to go off.
Right.
Of.
I'm not saying wrong. We did it intentionally wrong. Never that. Yeah. That was what we thought to be true then, is what I'm saying. You know what I mean?
And also those initial, connections that we were making about, indica being something that helps you feel relaxed and sativa help you feel up. In a lot of circumstances, those things were true. We just didn't have the capability to do the science behind it and break it down further. And now here we are in a much different position, of course. So we know better, we do better. But
Yeah.
Yeah, to Luke's point,
this,
though, I think, like...
Yeah, go ahead. No.
I think you're absolutely right that, yes, there is a lot of just outdoor boof that's being produced, and a lot of it probably also has to do with the way that large amounts of, you know, illicit market cannabis are transported. Like, you probably have THCA degradation into CBN, which is reducing potency. But at the end of the day, the biggest point is that the DEA's lab has no incentive to skew the THC percentage one way or another. So that to me is still going to provide a more objective number than what you see on the label when you go into a dispensary in just about any state.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that 100%. So 100. But let me add too. I will say, and this is just from feeling the market out, is that California has shifted their lab responsibilities to a certain extent to where some of the labs, and I don't know about all labs. I just know in the areas that we deal with, is some of the lab testing and THC percentage in California has become a little bit more stringent. Now, if that continues, if all labs are doing it, this is not a blanket statement, but you are 100% correct though. It is a consumer driven number, and when it's a consumer driven number, which means a dollar driven number, you're always going to have these types of manipulations going on.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's a fundamental flaw of potency testing and labs for licensed cannabis that in most states they're not allowed to test anything else, which means all of their money has to come from cannabis testing, and as a result you have these practices like finding ways to, within the margin of error, you know, whatever that is when they're doing their test, trying to inflate the number. So I would say one thing the DEA could do that could actually be useful to the cannabis industry is, why don't you lend us some of your lab testing infrastructure? Teach people how to test cannabis properly and, you know, objectively.
I think it's a fundamental flaw of people, and people are just stupid.
Yeah, I mean, in the story is that they drew a large portion from like a 28-ton bus that went down in Oklahoma. I mean, that large sample is going to fuck up the average.
So it's just
right. So if you
just proof that they grow boof in Oklahoma is what you're telling me, right, Rico?
Right. Yeah. If they cop like 28 tons and they're drawing a large portion of these samples from that, like that could be just like one place that's putting out a fuck ton of boof, and I think that could skew their numbers.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a large haul.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And listen, and you don't know where in the grow process that was hauled from. Right. That could have been early in the flower where THC percentages are extremely low. Like, see, those are the things that I'm saying that you don't know when they have these type of numbers that they throw out there.
First of all, Luke, hold on, Luke. You know as well as I do that cops don't generally bust grows until they're ready to harvest.
No, you're right. You're 100% right. They'll wait until you're like getting ready to hang.
Exactly.
No, you're right, 100%. But let me just say this, and this is my soundbite for the day. Stop buying cannabis based on THC percentage. Period.
Yeah.
In my experience, the DEA labs have had to hold up to scrutiny in courts to verify that what they're getting in the lab results is actually true and verifiable. And the testing labs in California, other places, they don't give two shits about having to go to court and verify what they're doing. So you get a different quality of lab and lab technician, and they have recognized standards they use to set their equipment. California is just now coming up with a standard sample, is that this is where you set your machine at from this standard sample. So we all know we got the same metrics going on. You just can't believe a lot that comes out of these testing labs for the cannabis industry, because they're driven by the numbers of THC, which is not reliable.
Sounds like they should get in stock since they're driven by numbers so much. But nonetheless, we're going to go to a commercial, and we're going to be right back.
Oh, man, that was weird. Hey, you, America. Do I look like Sean Connery? Good morning, America. Saman Razani coming to you live from sunny Los Angeles, California, with the one and only highest host, Mr. Jason Beck, smoking on the best weed in the world. Did you know that we have an audio-only version of our podcast? You can find it on Apple, Google, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. No excuses in 2024. If you haven't checked us out, check it out now. And also, check out what the Prophet's doing in 2024.
To break this shit down? What?
All right. Stop whatever you're doing. Make sure you hit that like button. I know we'll appreciate it. You'll appreciate it, and YouTube will appreciate it. Also, make sure, if you have not subscribed to the channel, that you subscribe to the channel as well. And all of the articles that we cover on today's show will be up on our website probably later on today. They're not up there quite yet, so we do apologize for that. But nonetheless, we will see you all in a second. I'm Jason Beck, and this is Smoky Vanilla. And if you want to feel as good as I look, then you need to get a stretch and smoke with Smoky Vanilla.
Hi, I'm Smoky Vanilla. I have my bachelor's degree in kinesiology, and I'm a sports massage therapist and stretch coach. I focus mostly on individuals that are in sport with chronic pain or injury. I love to intuitively create and customize a session based on the individual that I'm working with. We'll go over a few postural assessments, work together to create a wellness journey based on the health history, past injuries, or anything still affecting you today. And we'll get you back on your feet right away with less pain.
We're about to stretch, and then we're gonna smoke, because we're gonna get on our stretch and smoke. If you want to feel as good as I look, then you need to come on down and get a stretch and smoke with none other than Smoky Vanilla. Oh boy. Oh jeez. All right, Rico.
That thing gonna never go away.
Rico, we're back.
All right, y'all. With over a decade of regulated cannabis technology and data experience under his belt, our next correspondent stays on his grind. And so it's no surprise he's currently working on a pro-athlete-focused lifestyle brand by the same damn name. And here to break us off with little Wednesday hump day heat, representing ATX coming out of the great purple state of Texas, Mr. Sohum Shah.
Thank you, Rico. Good to be here on this nice, beautiful Wednesday. Today we're going to talk about one of our favorite subjects, social equity in cannabis. Some more fuckery happening with the Massachusetts social equity program. Headline being, and this is from Marijuana Moment, with limited access to capital, social equity marijuana businesses in Massachusetts say they've been sold a bag of dreams. Even before cannabis was legalized in Massachusetts, Kajana Rose knew cannabis could make yoga a better time. Rose, 34, had been teaching ganja yoga for 7 years and has been selling cannabis edibles for even longer. Her family is Rastafarian, and she grew up with cannabis as a medicinal substance. When the state legalized marijuana, Rose was ready to embrace the business model that was being offered to social equity candidates like her. She expected business plans, weed cookies, and chill vibes, not the regulatory nightmare that she became enmeshed in. Her goal was to open up a vegan cannabis bakery in Roslindale. There, she hoped to sell customizable cannabis baked goods and hold community events like book readings. 3 years later, her store has never opened under her leadership, and she has gone broke in the process. As an entrepreneur, you know you're going to struggle, but by the time we got licensed, I was literally sleeping on my CMO's couch, said Rose. I had no home, I couldn't pay rent, I was on food stamps, I didn't have anything to my name. I can't tell you how many times people on my team sent me, the CEO, money to eat because they knew I didn't have it. That was literally the situation that I was in, and it just wasn't worth it at all. She decided it was time for her to get out of the business, but that was a challenge as well. Rose had accumulated close to $1 million in debt. When she tried to sell her license, she was told it wasn't worth enough money to clear her of her debt. It took 4 months, during which she continued to lose money for her to find a buyer, and she's now in the process of transferring ownership. She only just barely pay off her debt with the money from the transfer. She said, they sell us a bag of dreams, especially in the state. They're like, oh, you're economic empowerment. There have to be diversity plans. There have to be positive impact plans. And said Rose, it's not real. It's not happening. They're liars. They don't care. Rose is not alone. The entire cannabis industry is struggling as pot prices have plummeted, and operators deal with the unique challenges of working with a substance that's illegal under federal law. But those who got into the industry based on promises of social equity seem to be in particularly dire straits. From the outset, there was a promise made that the state would help those who had been harmed by the war on drugs and enter into and profit from the legitimate cannabis industry. The Cannabis Control Commission created a training program to create pathways into the cannabis industry for those individuals most impacted by the war on drugs. We also created 3 different license types targeting social equity. Rose qualified for an economic empowerment license, a type of license that is reserved for applicants who come from and who promise to employ people from communities disproportionately impacted by the war on drugs. There's also a special license type given to those who go through a Cannabis Control Commission social equity training program, and another for women-owned, minority-owned, and veteran-owned businesses. I'm not going to keep going into this. There's a lot of detail about Massachusetts's social equity program and some of the training they provided. But I think at the end of the day, social equity programs, especially in limited license markets, never work out because the capital requirements are so high to get going. It just puts them in a position to be taken advantage of multi-state operators, of well-capitalized people who are, not that they shouldn't be allowed to be in the cannabis game, but they're taking advantage of a program that's not intended for them. I know we've harped on it a lot, so we'll probably we'll get to continue doing that. But this is Sohum with High 9 News, and I can't wait to hear what the rest of the team has to say about this.
Exactly the reason I call this socialist equity. Exactly why. This is exactly
socialist
why.
equity.
Socialist equity right here.
These programs are just like doomed from the jump, no matter what. They're the arbitrary dollar amounts that the different cities get allocated by their states to run these programs, and then they have to put on some kind of education in order to qualify. But you have to qualify to get into the education program first. And there's just like so many steps. Just that program in and of itself takes months out of the applicant's life. They are not guaranteed a license just by completing the program. And, like Sohum said, in limited license markets, it's almost impossible to survive. I don't know a single, I had a front row seat to the social equity program rollout in the city of Sacramento. And I would say out of all of the cities that I've seen roll it out, this one had the best framework that it could have possibly. But even still, I don't think that there's a single person who received one of those grants who would step back and say, I'm wildly successful now. And
it represents them, and they don't. They're upside down. And when you put out these programs and you require someone with no business experience but has all these other qualifiers to run a business that is almost impossible to run if you have an MBA, and you put them in that, and they don't give them training in depth enough. They cover a bunch of subjects, and that's the problem I have with my social equity clients, is they call me when they've got their both feet on their wang, and it's like, well, didn't you learn that in your training? Well, no. Well, it's going to cost you $10,000 to learn it now. That's going to get you out of trouble, and they're upside down already.
Yep.
I don't know what the answer is, but if you put them in that position, then they're going to either go under or be taken advantage of. That's the other thing I see, is they put you as a straw man with 51% of the business, and somebody else runs everything, and you're just sort of left there. And if it doesn't work out, you get stuck with the bills.
Yep.
That's like the main problem, right? Is that they're trying to make business ownership in the cannabis industry more accessible by making people jump through more hoops, by making it less accessible, which makes zero sense. The places that I think have actually come closest to providing any degree of social equity are places like New Mexico and Oklahoma, where they have very cheap licensing fees. Basically, as long as you're zoned correctly, your license gets issued and you fill out the paperwork correctly, and then they let the market decide who the successful people are going to be. By reducing the barriers to entry, they've actually made their market more equitable. I'm not saying it's completely equitable, but in my view, it's more equitable than we see.
People have a fairer shot, you're saying. People have a fairer shot in those markets, is what you're saying.
It's more of a free market.
You're gonna see the natural free market principles work there in situations like that, which are great, but those don't always look pretty too for all parties. But let me say this is, I think the problem here is the government created a circle called social equity And then they gave all the social equity applicants in the cannabis industry a square block.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they did. And now they're saying, put it through the hole.
In a round hole.
Through a round hole. You have a square block in your hand and you have to put it through a round hole. These programs, the round hole is created by people outside of the industry, people outside of the communities that have been impacted by prohibition. No wonder the hole is round. They don't know to make it square. There's nobody on their board to tell them to make it square. So this is my point. Like, I know we continuously argue about, or not argue, but we discuss the social equity situations, right? And the chaos of most of them. And Manndie has highlighted a few localities that have got it more right, I would say. But we're going to continue to have this problem unless we backstep all the way to the beginning of where these programs are being created and say, hey, let's create these programs for success in the cannabis industry.
These programs are being created by people that couldn't hold a job in the private sector if their life depended on it.
Right. That's my point.
Straight up.
So my point is, like, you are following a roadmap created by somebody who doesn't even know where the treasure is.
Who couldn't even flip burgers at McDonald's if they had to, if their life depended on it.
And they're supposed to be the pilot.
Yeah, but you know what? If you're flipping burgers in California, you're making more money.
15 an hour.
Especially now with the price of packs
I won't go on
nowadays.
to it. I think that is what
25 an hour now, man. Come on, bro.
Well, I don't know about all that, but nonetheless, we're going to keep this train rolling. We're going to roll right in. We're going to roll right into Miss Manndie Tingler. She's a mom. She's an Emerald Cup edibles judge, and she's a cannabis executive that loves to show you how being all of those things can still lead to an executive lifestyle. That's right. It's none other than Miss Manndie Tingler. You're on mute, Manndie. You're on mute. You're on mute. You got to hit the mute button.
Unmute myself.
There we go.
So
There you go. There you go.
Lovely little story here. All right. How many of you out there are wily, wild teenagers? Anyone? All right. Let's go ahead and hear a story about some more of those. My headline today says 8 students on a field trip to La Brea tar pits hospitalized after eating marijuana edibles. Tisk, tisk. 8 students visiting the La Brea tar pits on Tuesday were hospitalized after they suffered adverse effects from ingesting marijuana edibles, according to firefighters. They were called to the scene around 12:45 p.m. by on-site security at the museum, which is located at the 5800 block of West Wilshire Boulevard, because the students were found with, quote, altered levels of consciousness, according to a statement from the Los Angeles Fire Department. All of the students were taken to nearby hospitals per department protocol, according to the LAFD. Their conditions were not immediately known. Today, several high school students who were chaperoned on a field trip to La Brea tar pits became ill. Our staff acted quickly to assess the situation and seek medical aid. This is a statement that was issued by Dalsy Casola, the communications coordinator of the Natural History Museum at Los Angeles County. Students were treated on scene and taken to nearby hospitals, according to first responders. Their symptoms were caused by something the students ingested on their own, unrelated to their visit to the La Brea tar pits. We extend our care and concern for the students and their families and wish them a healthy recovery. For more information, please contact the school or school district directly. Los Angeles Police Department officers were also called to the scene to assist the LAFD in the investigation. Now, you guys, I don't know about you, but when you were on a field trip in high school, did anyone you know ever get high or sneak alcohol or anything? Because this is not the first fucking time that this has happened, okay?
I'm surprised it's made the news.
I mean, why is this in the news? Why are all of these departments issuing statements about these 8 kids who just wanted to go have a little extra fun and probably accidentally took like a CBN gummy and felt very tired or something whacked like that? Like, for real, this is not news.
I will say, I think we should give some props to LAPD, but it's genius that they managed to show up and not shoot somebody during that interaction.
Whoa, bro, it's kids, bro. Stop it. They're going.
I know, that's why I'm saying I'm glad LAPD did not shoot any kids.
Stop with the gaslighting.
Kids drugs, apparently.
What gaslighting? You think LAPD's never shot a child before?
Yeah, shoot first, ask questions last, man.
Stop the gaslighting, Sohum. Cops are
You're gaslighting me right now.
Cops are people too, bro.
Why do they keep taking
Cops and corporations?
Kids to the hospital, yes. Can we please just have a class on what to do when your kid consumes weed?
Hold on.
They've had too much.
Here's the real question. Did law enforcement find out who had all the edibles? It doesn't say that, does it? It doesn't say. So we have on our hands, out running the streets of LA, an assailant giving kids gummies, you guys.
Hide your kids, hide your wife.
And it's not even Halloween yet.
They out here giving gummies to everybody.
Everybody getting high on gummies.
So I'm also kind of impressed that like none of the kids snitched on each other. It sounds like, because otherwise they would have definitely included. Well, because they didn't include in the article. I'm getting that because they didn't include in the article.
Let me help you do some really quick math. 8 kids.
Yeah.
Right. One of them is bound to have snitched.
I agree.
One of them.
I agree with that I agree with that in relativity. Okay, but what I'm saying is that this article doesn't mention how they got him, and all the other articles. Well, no, all the other articles when we cover these types of stories, they all mention where the kids sourced the goods, and this one doesn't.
I have a relevant question. What high school did these kids go to?
Well, it's obviously in Los Angeles. It doesn't matter. It's like they're on a field trip.
No, but I'm saying, did they come from Beverly Hills? Did they come from? This is what I'm getting at.
No, or are they from?
Does one of them have a connected
That doesn't
parent,
matter.
Which is why they're not getting snitched.
That doesn't.
It doesn't even say that.
That doesn't matter.
Do you think this entire story's cap? Like it doesn't say what school they were at.
It might be. You might be onto something, Reek. That whole story might be BS.
The whole story.
The last sentence of the article says that they don't know the school district either.
Right.
How do you not know the school district? It's on the side of the bus that the kids pulled up on.
Yeah.
This could have been just a bunch of little people. It could have been just a whole bunch of little people getting together, getting high and shit. You might not even be in high school. You know what I'm saying?
I bet you what happened. I bet you what happened is because you know people like Sohum and whatnot were all banging for defund the police, and now they can't afford to hire a detective to figure out what school county these kids came from.
LAPD got more money after the defund the police movement.
Yeah. See,
if an officer needs a detective for that, we probably need a new force. I might be with Sohum them.
Yeah.
If a cop is standing in front of a school bus full of kids and he can't tell me what school they're from,
right?
Yes, we have a problem.
At least
Karen Bass approved a larger budget for LAPD, by the way. So let's not make any false statement
the Democrats
or gaslight anybody about the fact that the police were actually received an increase in funding after the protests in 2020. There was not a single department that got defunded.
They should.
All the Democrats did. Joe Biden put $300 million to work as soon as he got in office directly to police, the police officers. So like all this defund the police bullshit, that was Black Lives Matter calling for that. And if you don't like what the cops are doing now, you know what? The Democrats are funding them. So that should be a talking point for y'all instead of saying that they're talking about that defund the police bullshit.
It is a great talking point that I was just,
I know. See, that's because
the other side of the argument, Jason. The opposite.
You got to pick one. You can't get mad at Democrats for defunding the police and simultaneously funding the police. It has to be one.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can, because they're funding them to not do their job.
Jason, that's not true. All it is how it was framed. It's framed by defund the police because it's not as sexy as reallocate funds in the police department, right? It's a longer terminology. Right. So it's like defund the police. The Republicans make it sound like, or conservatives make it sound like, take money away from the police. We have left officers. That's never what the argument was. The argument always was, hey, reallocate some of the funding for
that was never the argument. That was never the argument. No, that's not true.
Mental health services to go on calls to have somebody that can interact with somebody that may be having a mental health crisis rather than just a law enforcement interaction. That's what the defund the police that I read.
Absolutely what it was.
I understand that that's a catchy, fiery term, defund the police, and that was where I think the whole idea kind of tanked.
No.
So that was just my thing.
It's a terrible idea, but Rico, we got to keep this train rolling right on into Luke's story.
All right, man. Up next, y'all know who it is. It is the author, the father, the OG, our resident expert when it comes to all things outlaw-driven, the man of the hour. He got less hair than me, but he got more clout than me. Coming to the stage next, y'all know who it is, the purveyor of truth and justice for High at 9 News, the man, the author, the best-selling author, and, I forgot my book right here, man. I was going to hold my book up and everything, but y'all know who it is, Luke Scarmazzo!
Yeah. Man. I haven't had an intro like that since, my aunt or Fort Lauderdale on the stage with Alexa Alianello from X.
There we go.
I need to drink more coffee. Is that what you're saying?
Man, that was hardcore right there. That was awesome, brother. Anyhow, well, let's go into some stuff that's not hardcore. I'm gonna stay over on the Northeast though. We're gonna go into Maine, and we're gonna go into the era of Prohibition. We're gonna go into 2 days ago. And we're going to say why the feds want to seize Maine's illegal marijuana grow houses. The federal government wants to seize four Maine houses. I know that sounds like the federal government wants to seize 4 Maine houses, but it's really 4 Maine houses that were recently raided by police for allegedly operating illegal marijuana grows. 4 lawsuits were filed last week in the U.S. District Court in Bangor. The first step for the federal government to be awarded ownership of the properties by civil forfeiture. It's the latest step in a surge in police activity since the beginning of the year that has seen local and state law enforcement execute warrants to shut down more than 40 properties alleged to be housing illegal marijuana grows throughout the state. Here's what happens next with these properties and why the federal government is suddenly involved. Maine's law prohibits the state from pursuing forfeiture of properties connected to the adult use of marijuana in specific circumstances. However, federal law does not have the same provision, and the U.S. attorney must prove in court there is a preponderance of evidence. Remember, preponderance of evidence that the property is linked to criminal activity. So in other words, what they're saying here is, hey, the state of Maine has okayed this activity and okayed properties to be used to facilitate this activity. But the federal government is going to come in, overstep Maine's law, and supersede them with federal law, and come in and take the properties. And in forfeiture proceedings, they don't need the higher standard of the law, and Dale will kind of lace you guys up on this. They only need a preponderance of the evidence, which is a lower standard and very easy for them to obtain. The 4 houses, with nearly 11,000 square feet in total, had row after row of marijuana plants. One had a pungent smell throughout, and another large-scale electrical service box, according to the lawsuit. Man, that's terrible. It's clear that the residential grows are impacting not only neighborhoods, but the residences close to those establishments, Assistant U.S. Attorney Andrew Lozette said. The lawsuits are filed against the properties, and then they list the addresses of the properties. We don't need to do all that. Now the lawsuits regarding the properties are filed. The homeowners will have a chance to provide a response. The cases will go before a federal judge. No responses have been filed at the time of the publication, and there are no court dates scheduled. If a judge grants the forfeiture request, which is highly likely that he will, the properties will be sold by the U.S. Marshals Service. If the properties are sold, who gets the money? Well, that's interesting, isn't it? The proceeds are used by the U.S. Marshals Service to fund its forfeiture program. So the proceeds of the properties that are seized by this service go to funding the service. I don't know, like, I'm not an expert on conflicts of interest because I'm not an attorney. I don't know, that sounds like one to me. Profits from specific forfeitures are then transferred to state and local governments, but it's unclear if Maine will receive any money. I'll tell you if you receive any money. If your local law enforcement participated in the raid and the arrest, then they'll receive some of the money, because that's what happens with these raids by the feds. They come in, they seize these forfeiture programs, they seize these properties, and then that money goes back to the agency that seized them. And sometimes the state will get some if, like, they helped out, they cut you a little cut, but most of the time you don't get nothing. So the feds just came in, took your property as a state resident, took your property as a state, sold it, you get nada. If there are other viable properties, the U.S. Attorney said they will start forfeiture proceedings. He declined to explain what makes a property viable. I'll tell you. There are believed to be around 100 illegal marijuana grows across the operations across the state, U.S. Attorney Darcy McElwee said. We are exploring every possible criminal and civil mechanism for enforcement to address this problem. The Department of Justice policy encourages parallel investigations, both criminal and civil, so we're intending to utilize any available tools at our disposal that's appropriate given the circumstances. Yeah, it just goes on to say that they've been busting, different properties. We have a lot. There's like I said, there's so many things wrong with this. The forfeiture process is horrible right now. They're trying to reform it. That's going on both sides of the aisle. I hope that they can get that together, because it's a mess there of how they use the civil forfeiture process against nonviolent drug offenses, and it's crazy. And basically, it doesn't matter if any of the proceeds were used to purchase any of those properties. Like, if you sell a bag of weed and you're sitting on a 100-acre farm, guess what? That 100-acre farm, gone. And that's how it happens. And good luck fighting that in court, because the preponderance of the evidence, that's a very low bar for them to obtain. And let's just say, like, I feel like this whole situation, why are we doing this right now? We're talking about federal legalization. We're talking about Schedule 3. We're talking about interstate commerce. We're talking about passing the CAOA and the Safer Banking Act and all this other stuff. Right, it is trash. 100%. But I'm just saying, this is the sentiment that's going on all around the federal government right now. But we're still taking people's properties? Like, that doesn't seem right to me. Like, that is as anti-American as it gets. You're taking this property for somebody who is following their state law, and the state is saying that we would never take their property. That's a larger issue, I think, that we have to identify as a people and say, hey, that's not cool. You know what I'm saying? I don't really think that utilizing that tool against the people and against the sovereign states and against people who have property in those states, I don't feel like they're getting their due process going on there. But I'm going to kick it back to my correspondents. You guys chop this up. Tell me what you guys think about it. I'm sure there's a bunch of different angles on it. This is Luke Scarmazzo coming to you for the High at 9 News, your local outlaw correspondent. Yada I mean.
There's the government trying to get their shit back.
This points out the problem we have with federal law enforcement and the agencies that surround them. They hate weed, and they'll do everything they can to stop it. And no matter what's coming out of their mouth, what they actually do tells you where their head really is. Because we had a case 4 or 5 years ago, Timms, I think, versus Indiana, where a court stepped in and said, nah, you violated the 8th Amendment by confiscating somebody's property. Okay. But that is not universally held across all the appellate districts. That may have to be litigated up there. Because if you get somebody doing something that's legal in the state, and the feds come in and the evidence standard is the civil standard, only a preponderance, 51%. You know, the scales of justice just tip your way. And they can take multi-million-dollar pieces of property. Now you have a question of, is this an excessive fine? But other than that, there isn't a lot you can do about this because they all work together. State, local, and federal agencies are on the phone every day. And if they can't get you one way, they'll get you another. And it points out the problems. We're still facing headwinds here. And there isn't a lot you can do if they decide to go civilly, because you don't get all the protections you get in criminal court. You got to hire your own lawyer. You don't get one appointed for you. And the standard for proof is very low. It's a very low bar. If you had weed in that greenhouse, you're basically done. They met their standard.
It's like the story that I covered last week, man. The Supreme Court now saying that you can't get none of that back.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, I think there's another part of that too. Maybe Dale, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but they're not required to give you property back, even if they never end up charging you with a crime. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the story that I covered last week. Yeah, they just ruled on that. They said that you are not even entitled to a speedy trial on that.
That's just
no.
insane.
Well, that's because the civil forfeiture hearing is aside from your criminal hearings, right? So you got to look at it as like a car driving on two different lanes, right? One car can crash while another car can keep going. So
it's like OJ too, right? Like he was found not guilty of murder, but still found civilly liable for.
And that's because of what Dale said of that lower standard of evidence, the preponderance of the evidence, rather than reasonable doubt, which is a much higher standard.
Yeah,
that's why they can reach those on civil cases much easier, and that's what ends up happening in these civil forfeitures. It's even worse. It's basically you go in there and they just take your property. It really, no matter what you say, you can show receipts. You can show, hey, I bought this legally and obtained it legally. My grandma gave it to me. It's been in the family. None of that matters. You, like Dale said, did you grow a plant in your greenhouse? Well, it's ours now.
It's just straight up theft. That's what it is.
That's pretty much
theft
it.
By the state.
Exactly. Well, it's stayed by the state, also too by the federal government. Because it has been done by the federal government for years.
I'm sorry. When I say state, I mean like.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is that many people inside of the federal government are recognizing that this is a really unjust and unconstitutional process that's going on. And they're starting to create some noise about it, and that's within the federal government. So what we have to do is just continue to encourage them and support them. And when we see legislation or politicians talking about this, continue to say, yes, this is an important thing that we need to address, because it's not just cannabis. This is a much broader issue when you go to civil forfeitures that are affecting a much grander number of people.
Agreed. Agreed.
Wait, Luke, did you say there was legislation that's being worked on right now to reform asset forfeiture?
I don't know if it's currently alive still. I know I have read it, and there has been legislation around. Again, I don't know if it's still sponsored and still being put forth through committees. That's something that we'd have to look into. But yes, there has been talk, and there has been legislation sponsored. I don't know. Again, I don't know I don't know if it even made it out of committee. When I was reading about it, it was in committee, and they were talking about reforming the forfeiture process.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. You ready, Rico?
Oh, ready.
All right.
Thank you all for joining us for yet another episode of High 9 News. You can catch us live weekdays, 9 a.m. Pacific, high noon on the East Coast. Big shout out to our super fans showing love, getting their comments posted live on the big screen. Our live audience and online supporters, catching us across all media platforms, tuning in each day to the headlines of chaos, also known as the development cannabis industry. To our vetted correspondent team, tuning in from all over, bringing us much needed variety of perspective and your respected opinions to the table. All of our sponsors keeping the lights on, and our production team, Cloud Media partners.
And we got Millie in the building today.
Millie in the house.
A million here, a million there.
Oh yeah, a Millie all up in the house today.
Yes, and I want to tell Millie, great job today. She did a lot better with her transitions today, and still some work to do, but we are getting there.
Yes, indeed. Pretty soon, you too will be able to feather your hair.
That's
Millie.
right. Pretty soon, Miller.
Remember that.
Yes.
As always, Cannabis Sativa L, the reason we show up to read these headlines every single day, thank you too. It has been Wednesday, May 15th, 2024. The show is over, and you've all been blessed with the top industry headlines. Hope it is enough for you to put in your pipe and smoke at least until tomorrow. My name is Rico Lamitte, the dopest dad on the street for High at 9 News, the cannabis industry's #1 daily news show. And today, I think we're gonna give this shit to the Scarmazzo. What you got for us, man? You know, take us out with some wise words.
Oh yeah, these ones are really easy right here. We're just gonna say, man, one love.
One love, one love.
They made a song about that.
One love.
Yeah, see, that sounded like that too. That song. We're rolling. We're ending it, Millie. We're